Hi everyone, welcome back to Lulumath. This video is on graphing quadratic relations in vertex form. Before we proceed with this video, you will need to know three things in order to have a good understanding of this video. You will need to know how to do transformations of quadratic graphs and what the A, the K, and the H do in vertex form, which is y equals A times x minus h quantity squared plus k. So you'll need to know what the A, the H, and the K do. You'll need to know step patterns of quadratics, and you'll need to know about finding the vertex of parabolas. All of these videos are available at lulumath.com as well as the Lulumath YouTube channel. So in this example, we're asked to graph the quadratic equation y equals the quantity x minus 5 squared plus 2. So the first thing we're going to want to do is find the vertex. Now, just a reminder that in vertex form, the vertex is the point h, k. So looking at this equation here, we can see that the h value is 5 and the k value is 2, and they're both positive because don't forget that since this says minus h and this says minus 5, the 5 has to be positive to keep it a minus. So since h is 5 and k is 2, our vertex will be 5, 2. Okay, the next thing we need to do is to determine the step pattern. Now, just a reminder that the step pattern is always 1a, 3a, 5a, 7a, so on and so forth, and we'll just put whatever we can fit. And the a value is this number that's in front of the brackets or in front of the x, the input. And looking here, we don't have a number in front, so there's an invisible 1. So that means that a will be equal to 1. Making our step pattern 1 times 1, 3 times 1, 5 times 1, 7 times 1, so on and so forth. So that means that our step pattern will be 1, 3, 5, 7, so on and so forth. Now we want to use the step pattern to draw half of the parabola. Now before we do that, we have to be very strategic about where we're going to place the vertex as well as the scale on our graph so that way we can show the full parabola. I decided to place my x-axis a little bit lower because my vertex is at 5, 2, and my step pattern and my a value are both telling me that my parabola is going to open up, which means my parabola will be fully above my x-axis. Also, my vertex being at 5, 2 is going to tell me that my vertex is going to be to the right of the y-axis. So I made it so that my y-axis is farther to the left, so I have more space to the right of my y-axis. Now, it is very important that you number and label your axes. So we always put 0 here, and I'm going to go by ones because I have enough space to fit it in where each tick mark represents 1. So I'm going to label every 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Now, just a heads up, you are allowed to have a different scale on your x and y axes, but you have to be consistent along the x-axis and you have to be consistent along the y-axis. Now let's go ahead and graph out our vertex. So our vertex is at 5, 2. So I'll go, for starting from the origin, I'll go to the right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 2. And this point right here is my vertex. And I'm also going to draw in my axis of symmetry through my vertex because that's going to help me with my graph. Now, since my step pattern is 1, 3, 5, 7, I will go to the right 1 and up 1 right here. Then I will go, that's my first point. My second point is to the right 1 and up 3, so I'll go to the right 1 and up 3, 1, 2, 3. And then my next point will be to the right 1 and up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And generally this is sufficient, but if you have space, keep going. So I'll go to the right 1 and up 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Here's half of my parabola. The next thing I want to do is reflect what I have over the line or the axis of symmetry to draw the other half of my parabola. So from this point to my axis of symmetry, I would go to the left by 1. So I'll go to the left by 1 again, and I have my first point on the other side of my axis of symmetry. For the next point, I would start here. I would go to the left by 2 to get to my line of symmetry. So I will go to the left 2 again, and here is my other point. For the next point, I would start here and I would go to the left by 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'll go to the left again by 3, 1, 2, 3, and here's my next point. And then my last point here, I would go to the right by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, go to the right by 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and my point is right here. I could also just do the step pattern again. So I could go to the left one, up 1. I could go to the left one, up 3. I could go to the left one, up 5. And I could go to the left one and up 7. Connect your dots, and then you have your parabola. And that's what you need to do in order to graph a parabola in vertex form. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Our equation is y equals 3 times x plus 1 squared minus 4. So the first thing we want to identify is our vertex. I'd like you to try to see what you think the vertex is and then come back to see if you got it right. So the vertex is always going to be the h value followed by the k value. And here, our h value is this number here, but because this is minus and because this is plus, in order to get a plus sign here, we need to have minus a negative. We need a -1 here for this to turn into a plus. So that means that our h value is -1. And our k value is a little bit more straightforward. It is this -4 here. How did you do? If you got it right, excellent. If you didn't, no problem at all. Mistakes are how we learn. And if you have any questions, make sure to reach out. The next thing that we need to find out is the step pattern. So remember, the step pattern is always going to be 1A, 3A, so on and so forth. But the question is, what is the A value? So see if you can figure out what the A value is yourself, and then come back and check to see if you got it right. So the A value is always this number in front of our brackets here. So our A value should be 3. How'd you do? All right, so for our step pattern, we'll do 1 times A, 3 times A, 5 times A, so on and so forth. And since A is 3, it'll be 1 times 3, 3 times 3, 5 times 3, 7 times 3. So we end up getting 3, 9. 1 times 3 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9, 5 times 3 is 15, 7 times 3 is 21, so on and so forth. Now again, we have to be strategic about where we want to place our x and our y axes. And we'll place our x-axis a little bit lower because our vertex is only at -1, -4. It's not that far below the x-axis, but our parabola opens up as shown by our positive step pattern, and our parabola is going to be quite stretched vertically, so we need to have enough space above the x-axis. And then because the vertex is at -1, the vertex is to the left of our y-axis. So I have my y-axis placed where I have a little bit more space to the left, but it doesn't really matter because we have plenty of space horizontally to show our x values. So here's 0, 0, and because I don't need that much space horizontally, on my x-axis, I'm just going to go up by 1s. However, on my y-axis, I need to have enough space to show this parabola that, again, is quite stretched vertically. So I'm going to go by 2s instead of going by 1s. So this will be 2, this will be 4, this will be 6, 8, 10, 12, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and graph out our vertex. So our vertex occurs at -1, -4. So I will go to the left by 1 and down by 4, but remember each tick mark is 2, so -2, -4. This point right here is my vertex. I will also draw in my line of symmetry. And now I can use the step pattern to draw half of my parabola. And this time I'll do it to the left, and it doesn't really matter what side you do it on. So since my first step is 3, I will go to the left by 1 and up by 3, but every vertical box here represents 2 units. So here's 2, and then 3 will be right here. Okay, the next one is 9. So I will go to the left by 1, and then I will go up by 9. So here's 1, and then 3, 5, 7, 9. So here's 9 right here. And then for the next one, I will go to the left by 1 and up by 15. So I will go to the left by 1 and then up by 15, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. And then another half of a box will bring us up to 15. And I don't have enough space for the 21, which is fine. I have enough points to represent what my parabola will look like. So now let's go ahead and reflect these points over my axis of symmetry. So for this point here, I will go to the right by 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I will go to the right by 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and here's where my new point will be. For this point right here, I will go to the right by 2, 1, 2, so I will go to the right again by 2, 1, 2, and here's where my new point will be. And then for my last point here, I would just go to the right by 1, go to the right by 1 again, and there's my new point here. Connect the dots and you have your parabola. And that's it for this question. Okay, for our next question, we need to determine the vertex as well as the step pattern. I would like for you to please determine the vertex and the step pattern on your own and come back to check to see how you did. So the vertex should be 9, -3, and the step pattern should be 1/2, 3/2, 5/2, 7/2, so on and so forth. Or if you said 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, so on and so forth, that also works as well. Now, if you got that right, excellent. Fast forward through the explanation as to why this is correct. If you didn't get it right, then I will have a quick explanation as to why this is right now. To find the vertex, it's always the h value followed by the k value. So if you look here, you can see that the h value is this 9, and it's +9 because this is a minus, and in order to keep this as a minus sign, the 9 has to be positive. And as you can see, the k value here is -3, and that's where we got this -3 from here. Now, to find the step pattern, we would do 1a, 3a, 5a, 7a, so on and so forth. But the a value comes from this part of our equation here, so we can see that a is equal to 1/2. So we will do 1 times 1/2, 3 times 1/2, 5 times 1/2, 7 times 1/2, which will give us 1/2. 3 times 1 is 3, 3 over 1, 1 times 2 is 2. When I multiply across here, 5 times 1 is 5, 1 times 2 is 2, and same thing here, when I multiply across, 7 times 1 is 7, 1 times 2 is 2, so this is our step pattern. Now, if I were to divide this out, 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, 3 divided by 2 is 1.5, 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, and 7 divided by 2 is 3.5, and that is where we got the decimal values here. So let's go ahead and talk about how to graph this. Since my vertex is at 9, -3, I want to place my graph so that I have enough room to the left of my y-axis to get to this 9. And for my y-axis, I'm not as concerned about it because my vertex goes down to -3, so it's not too low. And my step pattern right here is pretty small. My graph has been compressed, it's gotten shorter, so I have some space to draw my graph out. So based on that, I will put my y-axis a little bit farther to the left, and I will put my x-axis somewhere in the middle. Don't forget to label your axes, x and y. And I think going by ones is an appropriate scale. Now, since my vertex is at 9, -3, I will go to the right by 9, and I will go down 3. And this I will label as my vertex. I will also draw in my axis of symmetry. So here's my axis of symmetry right here. Now let's go ahead and use our step pattern to do half of our parabola. Now, since our step pattern is 0.5, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, I'll use that to help me out. So I will start with my vertex and I will go to the right by 1 and up by 0.5 or 1/2. Then I will go to the right by 1, so I finished that one, and I will go up by 1.5. So here's half, and then here's another whole, so this right here is 1.5. Then I will go to the right by 1, and then up by 2.5. So 1, 2, and another half right here. And lastly, I will go to the right by 1 and up by 3.5. So here's a half, plus 1, plus 2, plus 3 gives me 3.5 right here. Now I just have to reflect this over my axis of symmetry or repeat the step pattern. So if I were to reflect this, this goes over to the left by 1. So I'll go over to the left again by 1, and there's that point. Here, this would go to the left by 2. So I'll go to the left by 2 again, and there's that point. This one goes to the left by 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'll go to the left by 3 again. And then this one goes to the left by 4 to get to the axis of symmetry. So I'll go to the left by 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm at this point right here. And this is my parabola. So I'll connect my dots, and I'm good to go. Now, not all of our parabolas will open up. So in our last example, we'll talk about what happens when our parabola opens down. So for this example, I would like you to find the vertex and the step pattern on your own and come back to see how you did. So for this one, you should get that the vertex is -3, 7, and that the step pattern is -2, -6, -10, and -14, so on and so forth. If you got this right, excellent. Skip through this next explanation. If you got it wrong, again, no problem. Mistakes are how we learn. You're giving yourself a chance to really enrich your understanding, so it's no worries at all. If you have any more questions about it after we do this explanation, please make sure to reach out. So a reminder, the vertex occurs at H, K, and our H value here has to be a -3 in order to turn this minus sign into this plus sign. We need to have a negative here because the double negatives cancel each other out to become a positive. And then our K value is just simply the 7 right here. Now for the step pattern, we have to do 1A, 3A, 5A, 7A, so on and so forth. And the A value is equal to -2. So when I multiply 1 by -2, I get -2. 3 times -2 is -6. 5 times -2 is -10. And 7 times -2 is -14, so on and so forth. And that is how we get this step pattern. So now we have to decide where are we going to place our x and y axes and what kind of scale are we going to use to get a good view of this parabola. Well, our vertex is at -3, 7, which means that it is above the x-axis, but because our step pattern has negative values in it, this tells us that our parabola is going to open down. So we need to have enough space below our x-axis to be able to see what's happening with our parabola. Our vertex also occurs at -3, so we need to have a little bit of space to the left of our y-axis to be able to see that our vertex is at -3. So because we need a little bit of space to the left of our y-axis, I'm going to place my y-axis farther to the right. Don't forget to label this the y-axis. And I'm going to place my x-axis a little bit on the higher side because my parabola opens down and it is vertically stretched because of this 2 that we have. So I need to have enough space below my x-axis to show a good portion of my parabola. And on my x-axis, I'm just going to go up by 1s. However, on my y-axis, because my graph is vertically stretched, I'm going to go up by 2. So this will be 2, this will be 4, this will be 6. Don't forget to put your 0. This is -2, -4, so I'll put -6, so on and so forth. Now I'll go ahead and graph out my vertex, which is at -3, 7. So I'll go to the left by 3 and up by 7. So here's 2, 4, 6, and then 7 right here. This point right here is my vertex. I will draw in my line of symmetry, and then I will do my step pattern. So since my step pattern starts with -2 right here, we're going to go to the right or to the left, up to you, by 1, and then down by 2. So I'm going to go to the right by 1 and down by 2. So remember, each box here represents 2 units, so a half a box is 1 unit. So here's 1, here's 2. So this is where I will end up at. The next one is at -6, so I will go to the right by 1 and then down by 6, so 2, 4, 6 right here. The next one, I will go to the right by 1 and down by 10, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then the next one, I will go to the right by 1 and down by 14, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 right here. Now I will reflect each one of these points over my axis of symmetry. So this goes to the left by 1 to get to the axis of symmetry. So I'll go to the left again. by 1. This goes to the left by 2, 1, 2. So I'll go to the left by 2. Here we go. This one goes to the left by 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'll go to the left by 3, 1, 2, 3. And then the last one goes to the left by 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll go to the left by 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are the points that make my parabola. Connect your dots and you have your parabola. Okay, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, please make sure to let us know in the comments below or at lulumath.com, where you can also find blank or completed notes for this video. If you found this video to be useful, please make sure to subscribe and share with others, and we'll catch you next time. Have a great day. Bye.